Welcome to Meditating with John Vervaeke. I'm a cognitive psychologist and a cognitive scientist at the University of Toronto. I study scientifically and academically mindfulness and related phenomena like flow, insight, mystical experience, and wisdom. I've also been practicing Vipassana meditation for 29 years, metta contemplation for 29 years, and Tai Chi Chuan for 29 years. I've been teaching them professionally for close to 20 years. This is actually a course, and on Mondays and Thursdays, I actually teach a progressive set of rules and practices in order to engage in a deep mindfulness training and transformation. On Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, we just meet and sit. At the end of every session, there is a question and answer period. If you're just joining us, you're welcome to stay. Today we'll just be sitting, but I recommend you go back and look at day 1, day 3, and yesterday's videos, because those are the 3 teaching videos that you missed so far: finding your center, finding your root, and finding your flow. More general announcements. For this week, we're going to stay with the Monday and Thursday teaching schedule. There's a possibility of Mondays and Fridays. This is not settled yet, but just a heads up in case we do end up shifting it. Also, I've been working with Christopher Mastropietro revising the meditation manual that I have written that is based on the course that I'm teaching you. I was speaking with him last night, and we're expecting to have the complete revision done in June, and the meditation manual will be seeking publication at that point. So there is a meditation manual, a book for this course that will be coming out hopefully later this year. Okay, so last time we reviewed finding your flow, and it's training your attention by putting it into a state where you're really putting significant demand and challenge on it, while really increasing your interoception by expanding your awareness across your abdomen, then into your abdomen, then enriching it by noticing the detailed differences. So you're zooming out and zooming in at the same time, getting that optimal gripping that we talked about. You do that here, you do that at the heart. And each place you use the motion of your breath to anchor your attention, and then you do the finding your flow here, shoulders, back, torso, until you're following the whole of your breath with the whole of the torso. Your focal awareness is here, your peripheral awareness is here. This really deeply enhances and integrates your interoception with your introspection, which really increases your mind sight. This is Siegel's term for your ability to pick up on other people's mental states and your own mental states, which is one of the things you're seeking to train through training mindfulness. And it really grounds you more and more in the living presence of the body. Okay, so everybody get ready. We'll begin when I say the word begin. Make sure you're in a comfortable posture. Always take time to center and root. Take as much time as you need. Find your flow. Please remember, when you're finding your flow, don't hyperventilate. Don't hyperventilate. Okay, everyone? Please begin. Slowly begin to come out of your practice, trying as best you can to integrate what you've cultivated in your practice with your everyday cognition. Open your eyes, trying to keep that same state of mind and body, looking around the room, reconnecting to your life. It's suffuse into your background way of being. All right, we'll take any questions people might have right now. Are there any questions, Amar? All right, so it looks like we're just going to wait a minute to see if there's any questions. Amar's doing a final search. As always, I'm very grateful for the fantastic help I get from Amar and from my son, Jason. Just wait a couple more minutes to see if there's any last minute questions. Here's a question. If you lose the flow, should you just go through these points again? You'll tend to lose the flow in general because you're beginning to learn. I would recommend just doing a very brief reconnecting with the dantian, the abdomen area, the heart, the shoulders, the body. Just try and get that, re-engage the whole thing, but get back to the breath sort of as quickly as you can. What do we think about using audio aids? This is from Mark in meditation. I use this all the time myself. The difficulty with audio aids, it's called encoding specificity. This is from cognitive science. Your brain is always storing the context in addition to what information it's storing. And you can use this to your advantage if you want to remember something for an exam, or a test, play some music while you're studying that material, then imagine the music when you are studying it. But the reverse is also the case. It also limits you. So what's going to happen with audio aids, especially things like music, is your brain is going to do encoding specificity, and it's going to always be looking for that when you're trying to get into the mindfulness state, which means when you are places where you can't use those aids in meditation, or much more importantly, when you're trying to bring mindfulness into your everyday life, you won't have those aids available, and your brain will find it difficult to transition into the mindfulness you need. So I would recommend, as soon as you can, gradually, because you probably have built up a habit, weaning yourself off of any of those kinds of auditory aids. The next one is from Andre Ferrer. In the first video, you said about getting to feel your pulse in the thumb. How do I do that without pinching it too hard? Yeah, you have to sort of move it around and play with it. It takes quite a bit of practice and sensitivity to get it. So I recommend trying doing it outside of meditation. Just, you're sitting down. I hope you don't creep whoever you happen to be sort of quarantined with. But anyways, just sit and practice moving around, trying to find your pulse outside of meditation without having to pinch really hard. And eventually you will find it. It's a bit of a knack. It's a bit of a knack for some people. Other people can just do it right away. I myself had to play with it quite a bit before I could find it. This is from Nicholas. Am I supposed to envision actual roots coming from my body into the ground? Yes, initially, sort of envision. This is using imagination in an imaginal sense, not just an imaginary sense, using imagination to train perception. Do that initially until that sense becomes readily available to you, and then you can let the image go. We're going to talk about this throughout the course. You're engaging in some inner speech right now, which is different from your monkey mind, and because it's directed, you're in, out, or you might be you might be labeling. Well, that's inner speech. That's directed. It's also directed imagination. These are like the raft that the Buddha talks about. These are inner coaching. You have to do this until eventually you get the skill, and you don't need to talk to yourself in order to do it. I can walk across this room and I don't have to talk to myself. I don't have to say, lift my right leg, lift my left leg. I can catch a ball and I don't have to talk to myself. I can do Tai Chi Chuan without having to talk to myself. But when I was learning, I had to sort of talk to myself. I had to use imagination. In fact, the Tai Chi manuals recommend that. But eventually that will fall away and you will directly be able to do the practice. Holly, I'm having a hard time not hyperventilating in the flow, maybe because I have thought not to hyperventilate top of my mind. Do you have any suggestions? Maybe leave the flow practice away for a couple of days, just do the center rooting and going into the meditation. And then when come back, try and do it very light touch. You're not going to try and get too much of a flow going, just a little bit of flow in the abdomen, chest, shoulders, right? So leave it off, go back to the centering and rooting, and then gradually work your way back in to the practice. If I start to slouch, it is because I have not rooted properly. It can be. This is from Diane. It could also be that you're starting to fall asleep, Diane. So make sure that your head isn't rocking forward initially, because the slouch may begin with you doing this. So you can tell you're falling asleep if it feels like sort of your mind is, the scope of your mind is collapsing. It's getting fuzzy. It's getting sort of warm and comfortable. And that's a sign that what you need to do a little bit more flow. Make sure you're baby breathing, getting enough oxygen into your practice. I strongly recommend that many of you consider taking up, I recommended this yesterday, a moving mindfulness practice like Tai Chi Chuan or yoga, because right before you sit, because that will help actually energize you while getting you properly rooted and flowing, so that you will not tend to slouch and fall asleep when you're sitting. Andrea, again, when I'm centered and rooted, I focus on my breathing, I feel like losing consciousness, like falling asleep. My head is not tilted forward at anything. Is this normal? It can be, because what's typically happening, as I mentioned, your brain is getting very powerful signals that you're into interoception awareness and you're relaxing, and it can misread those signals as falling asleep. So just re-engage, maybe deepen your breath a little bit, re-engage flow a little bit more, but also, you like I said, you may want to take some kind of moving mindfulness practice that you can engage just before you sit, because that will help energize you in the appropriate manner. This is Alexi. How long do you personally do rooting for? I do not quite understand it, and doing it takes me further from my state. So I feel if I don't do it or do it briefly, my practice is better. You may be able to do it briefly. I don't know you individually. This is one of the difficulties with the virtual teaching. If you feel that you are finding your root, you can do it very briefly, then that's fine. Do that. As long as you've got that sense of sensitivity and stability that you can preserve while you're finding your flow, then you're fine. All right, so I want to thank everybody for joining. I want to thank always Amar and Jason for helping me out as they do. Please subscribe to this channel to be notified of the next video and any changes we might need to make to the schedule. But we're going to keep doing 9:30 except Sundays. We'll always have 2 teaching days. There'll always be Q&A. The video channel will have lots of other videos that I think you will find relevant to both responding to our current situation and to the long-term project of cultivating transformation and wisdom. And so I hope that you all continue to sit. Remember that continuity of practice is more important than quantity, and I look forward to sitting with you all tomorrow morning. Thank you for your time and attention. Take good care. See you tomorrow.